The gunshot victim's heart stopped for the third time in 6 minutes, and the loud-mouthed doctor screaming orders across the trauma bay had no idea that the quiet new nurse standing beside him had already pulled 11 men back from the exact edge of death he was terrified of crossing. Before we continue, if you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in people who prove themselves through actions instead of words, hit that like button, drop a comment, share this with someone who needs it, and subscribe to Midnight Tales so you never miss a story like this one. Her name was Elena Cross, and she had walked into Seattle Memorial Hospital 3 days earlier carrying nothing but a duffel bag, a quiet demeanor, and a set of eyes that had seen more suffering in 5 years than most people witness in a lifetime. She did not talk about where she had been. She did not mention the deserts, the convoys, the nights when the only light came from muzzle flashes and the only sound was her own heartbeat counting down the seconds she had to save a life before it slipped away for good. She simply put on her scrubs, pinned on her badge, and reported for duty like anyone else. But Dr. Marcus Vance did not see any of that. He saw a small woman with tired eyes and a plain resume that listed community clinics and volunteer work, nothing flashy, nothing that impressed him. Vance was the kind of doctor who had built his entire identity on being the smartest person in the room, the fastest hands, the loudest voice when things went wrong. He had spent 15 years climbing the ladder of this hospital, and he did not appreciate strangers standing quietly in his trauma bay like they belonged there. On her first morning, when a woman came in with severe internal bleeding from a car accident, Vance barked orders without even glancing at Elena, telling her to fetch supplies like she was an intern rather than a licensed nurse. She did not argue. She simply moved, fast and precise, anticipating what he needed before he finished the sentence. He did not notice. He was too busy being impressed with himself. By her second day, the whispers had started among the staff. They noticed the way her hands never shook, the way she assessed a patient's condition in seconds with a calm that unsettled even the most seasoned doctors, the way she could start in 4 in a moving gurney without missing a beat. But Vance dismissed it all as luck, or worse, as her simply following his lead. He made comments in front of other nurses, calling her the rookie, telling her she needed to toughen up if she wanted to survive in a real emergency room, laughing when she stayed silent instead of defending herself. Elena absorbed every word without flinching, not because she was weak, but because she had learned long ago that some battles were not worth fighting with words. She had earned her composure in places where losing your temper could get someone killed. She had held pressure on wounds while bullets cracked overhead. She had made split-second decisions about who could be saved and who could not, decisions that still visited her in the quiet hours of the night. Compared to that, a doctor's ego was nothing. It was noise she had learned to tune out. Then came the night that changed everything. A call came in about a mass casualty event, a highway pileup involving a fuel truck, multiple vehicles engulfed, dozens of injured pouring toward the hospital faster than the staff could process them. The trauma bay turned into controlled chaos, gurneys rolling in one after another, blood soaking through bandages faster than they could be replaced, monitors screaming in unison like a chorus of alarms nobody had time to answer. Vance was overwhelmed almost immediately. Despite his confidence, despite his years of experience, mass casualty events were different. They required a kind of calm under fire that could not be taught in medical school, a kind of instinct that only came from surviving real chaos. One patient arrived in critical condition, his chest torn open from shrapnel-like debris, his blood pressure crashing, his pulse fading beneath Elena's fingers as she assessed him in seconds. Vance froze for just a moment, staring at the wound, unsure of the fastest way to control the bleeding without losing the patient on the table. It was only a moment, but in trauma medicine, a moment can be the difference between a heartbeat and silence. Elena did not wait for permission. She moved with a precision that seemed almost inhuman, packing the wound with practiced hands, calling out vitals in a voice steady as stone, guiding Vance through the exact sequence of actions needed to stabilize a wound she had treated more times than she could count in places far more brutal than this hospital. For the first time, Vance was not the one giving orders. He was following them, and he did not even realize it until the patient's heart rate began to climb back toward stable. When the worst of the chaos finally settled, when the last gurney had been wheeled into surgery and the trauma bay fell into an exhausted, blood-streaked quiet, Vance turned to Elena with a question burning behind his eyes. He asked her, almost in disbelief, where she had learned to work like that, why her hands never trembled even as the room dissolved into panic around her. She was quiet for a long moment, the kind of quiet that carried the weight of things she rarely spoke aloud. Then she told him, simply, that she had spent 5 years as a combat medic, deployed in conditions where evacuation could take hours and every second of delay cost lives, where she had treated wounds far worse than anything a highway accident could produce, often with nothing but her own 2 hands and whatever she could carry on her back. She told him about the friends she had lost despite doing everything right, about the ones she had saved against impossible odds, about the nights she still could not sleep because her mind replayed every decision, wondering if she could have done something differently. Vance said nothing for a long time. The arrogance that had defined him for so long seemed to drain out of his posture as the truth settled over him. He thought about every dismissive comment he had made, every joke at her expense, every assumption he had built based on nothing more than her quiet nature and a modest resume. He realized, with a shame that sat heavy in his chest, that he had spent 3 days mocking the very person who had just saved his patient, and possibly his career, without asking for a single ounce of credit or recognition. In the days that followed, something shifted inside the hospital. Vance began to treat Elena not as a subordinate to be commanded, but as a colleague whose experience deserved respect. He started asking for her input during difficult cases, listening when she suggested a different approach, defending her when other staff members repeated the same tired jokes he once told himself. It was not a dramatic transformation overnight, but a slow, genuine one, built one small act of humility at a time. Elena, for her part, never sought an apology. She had not endured his mockery to prove a point or wait for vindication. She had simply done her job the way she always had, quietly and completely, because that was who she was. But when Vance finally did apologize, sincerely, without excuses, admitting that he had judged her unfairly and that she had taught him more about real courage in one night than years of medical school ever had, something in her softened. For the first time since she had come home, she felt truly seen, not for the uniform she used to wear, but for the person underneath it who had never stopped fighting to save lives, whether on a battlefield or in a hospital hallway. If this story touched your heart even a little, if it reminded you that the quietest people in the room are often carrying the heaviest, most extraordinary stories, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment sharing your thoughts, and share it with someone who needs a reminder that judging too quickly can make us blind to someone's true strength. Before you go, I want you to comment one word below that describes how this story made you feel. I read every single one, and I would love to know which part touched you the most. Elena Cross went on to become one of the most trusted nurses at Seattle Memorial, not because she demanded respect, but because she had earned it long before anyone ever knew her name. And Marcus Vance, the doctor who once mocked her, became one of her strongest advocates, a living reminder that the people we underestimate are sometimes the very ones who save us when we need it most.